back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I am Connor Williams, joined by Mike from the Blue Boys Network, and this is the extra time segment from the Tottenham Hotspur Everton game last night, as of recording. Give us your thoughts on it, Mike. It was
horrendous. It was horrendous from 15 minutes onwards, 10 minutes onwards. It was really poor. We didn't really have an answer to anything defensively. We kept the ball fairly well. Like we moved the ball around quite well. We were comfortable with it. You could see that there was a press at the start of the game, but as the game progressed, they countered-attacked more. In my opinion, and this isn't digging out Lampard, like I love Lampard, I've got all the time in the world for him, but I think he set up wrong. I think he went too aggressive, leaving too much space in behind our midfield for Son and Kane, which is a dangerous thing to do. But then we need results and we need to be scoring goals. So I can't, I certainly wouldn't criticise him for it. But we just got done, and our defence got completely exposed for what it is, championship back four. Well, yeah, it nailed it, absolutely nailed it. And unfortunately, Pickford, in his 200th appearance and his birthday, made a bit of a boo-boo on the second goal, but we were going to be done anyway. We were buried after the first one.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. We'll get into the Lampard one now. It was one of the ones I was going to ask you. He did come under a bit of criticism. Personally, I think I agree with you. I think he did get it slightly wrong in terms of he was too exposed, too pressing. But before coming into this game, I think I'd said to Cal on the channel that the back four of Spurs aren't exactly impressive on the ball if you could press them. The problem was I thought he pressed and we had too much of a high line. There's a lot of people on Twitter saying, why wasn't it exactly the same as the City game? I mean, whether he's told them that or not, it's one thing telling the players. It's another thing what the players actually go on there and do. But do you think this might be the first not mark, because he's not on we're not, counting down his days. But do you think this is a fair criticism on Lampard, his first fair criticism?
Not really, because I think there's a lot of issues at Everton. I mean, we all know there's a lot of issues, and before Lampard even come in, we had the issue with backing Rafa Benitez, spending £30 million on a left back and a right back, losing Luca Dean where the relationship had clearly deteriorated. That all happened 3 days before Rafa Benitez was sacked. We then bring in El Ghazi, which is and this is no disrespect to him, but I said it the moment Lampard joined, he's barely going to play in the Premier League. And that was a waste of a Premier League loan. So I don't really hold anything against him. We all make mistakes. And I genuinely think he got it wrong last night. Yeah, okay, we all do it. But I think he got it wrong. But I just think it's harsh to hold it against him when he's only 5 games in. It's not like he's had a really easy run. He's had a Newcastle, which are resurgent away from home. He's had a Southampton side, which are very, very good. Had just gone to Spurs, or we'd played them with the week before, and they'd got a result. So, and then they turned us over. They're a better side than us on paper right now. Then he's played Manchester City and Tottenham. He got done in the Man City game. So as much as you could argue it to mark against him now, he did really well in that Man City game. He got it right. He made us compact. He suggested we stay deep, and we very almost got a point out that game. Again, bar a mistake from Michael Keane and a VAR decision that was absolutely ludicrous. So I don't hold it against him. But what I do want to see is that we go into these away days now and we are defensive. I want us to be a low block. I want us to be 5 at the back. And if we're not going to win games of football away from home, draw them 0-0. Do you get what I mean? Be as tight as you physically can, because it's got to the point now where every single point is crucial. We need to try and keep clean sheets. We've got Watford and Burnley away from home. It's imperative we do not lose those games. And if that means we get 0-0 draws because we sat back and we put 5 behind the ball, I almost don't care.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, mate. And I think it's tough to. I was talking to my dad before about it, and it's tough because obviously 5-0 looks bad. 5-0 does look bad, but Rafa Benitez's side 5-2 at home to Watford, which at home I know it was a crazy 10 minutes. And then even Carlo Ancelotti, who I think people are now sort of pining over in sort of what we had, his last game against City, 5-0. Okay, people will argue it's Man City, but Lampard's ever, we lost 1-0 with Lampard the other week. We went into that game like we were ready for the testimonial sort of atmosphere that City were putting on. It almost felt like a tour. Every manager, the last 3 managers we've had have all had heavy defeats. Nobody is sort of, perfect in it. There does seem to be one current common theme that goes throughout all of those, though, and you linked onto it. It's the back four, the team as a whole as well, but more specifically the back four. You've already named one usual suspect in Michael Keane. You have the other one in Mason Holgate, who's quite error-prone. John Joe Kenny, who fans all of 2 months ago were saying isn't good enough for Everton, and Seamus Coleman, who I think Everton fans have been saying for the last 3 years his time is up at Everton. So I'm not going to fully criticise Lampard because I think he's working with a very stacked deck. But as I've just mentioned, the back four, there are sort of people wondering now, I say wondering, getting a little slightly impatient on why we're not seeing the likes of Patterson. Obviously, Mikalenko, I think, had a knock from the Borough Wood game anyway because he went off. And he's, to be fair to the lad, has got, bigger issues in the world going on. But Patterson, I think fans are sort of going, although he might not be ready, he's got to be better than what we're putting out. Do you agree with that, or do you think it's right to just wean him in slowly?
I think it's dangerous for Patterson for a couple of reasons. One, I've got no doubt the kid's got ability. I've got no doubt about that. You don't spend that sort of money if this kid isn't good enough. It's whether he's got the right mentality right now, and that isn't a dig at him. It's also, you could argue the same with any player in the squad. We are 17th in the league. We are essentially, 1 point above the drop. We've got a really difficult run of games coming up, with Chelsea, Man United. We've got a difficult run. Is a young player who's used to being either on the bench or top of the league at Rangers the right person to bring in? And honestly, I can go for and I can go against. I can say I think we need the experience of Coleman, but then I'm not going to say I didn't see much fight from Coleman yesterday, and this is a guy that everyone loves, including me, but unfortunately has probably been hung out to dry for Everton because he's still there. He's still playing week in, week out, and let's be honest. If he's still got a contract, he should be on the bench. He should have somebody playing in front of him. So I'd have no problem dropping him in that sense. But then in terms of Patterson, I think he does offer us a little bit more pace. I think he would offer us a little bit more creativity as well going forward. And I think he'd also have that desire that he wants to make a name for himself. For me, I play Patterson. That's straight up. I play Patterson. But these next 2 games are massive, and you can't necessarily criticise anyone for sticking with Coleman, but I would like to see Patterson personally. The left side's a bit different because it's been really weird with John Joe Kenny and Mikalenko, don't you think? Because I actually think, I'm not going to say Kenny's fantastic because he's not, and I am equally one of those guys that wouldn't necessarily give him a contract based on just 2 months of his Everton career. But he's played quite well at left back at times. Like I thought last night, out of all of the back four, he would have been the one that I was okay with. Like, don't get me wrong, he weren't great, but he was playing up against a very difficult Spurs side. Michael Keane, who cost £30 million, Mason Holgate, who's played over 100 times in the Premier League, and Seamus Coleman, who has played over 200 times for Everton. were poor compared to Kenny. Kenny showed fight, he showed heart, he showed he was an Evertonian, the same as Anthony Gordon. So I don't have that same issue with Kenny. But my issues, Coleman, Keane, and Holgate, they are. I would argue they're not even championship defenders at this point. Genuinely, they are the worst 3 defenders as of right now I've seen in a blue shirt. And I know how good Coleman was, but I'm talking about right now. He's not a Premier League defender, and it's a shame that he's being held out to dry.
Yeah, I completely agree, mate. I think those 3 in particular, not so much John Joe Kelly. I just think because he's not a left-footed player, he does sort of naturally, not his fault, but that does hinder the movement down that left-hand side because he's not going to whip it across on his left foot. But like you said, I don't think he's as calamity as the other 3. With Michael Keane, obviously, he's started this season quite, under a couple of mistakes as well, and I think that was sort of set the sort of scale for his season. But a couple of people were mentioning under Ancelotti, he wasn't too bad, and sort of asking questions. And I just thought I could get your view on it, because I don't know if he played better because of the manager, or if he was in a back 3 most of the time, so he was a little bit more protected. Or the other one might be that it was in front of no crowds, and I have this feeling that he's got I want to say, I'll say a weaker mentality. I don't know if it's any of those 3, all of those 3, none of them. What do you think the issue is where we're seeing a drop off from last season?
It's really difficult with him because I've never rated him, and that's what's difficult, because there's been games where he's played well and he's put his body on the line, and he would have done that last season under Carlo Ancelotti. He did it a few times under Silva. He seemed fairly solid. I remember when Koeman signed him, we were really impressed with him. I think he got in the England team, and there was a period where he looked like a very good signing. But I've always thought, and Jamie Carragher mentioned it yesterday. If you watched the game on Sky, he mentioned how unathletic we are and how static we are. Well, Michael Keane is a tree. He can't move. You saw it last week against Manchester City. He was flat-footed. He couldn't do anything. He got caught so many times yesterday because he's slow and flat-footed. And look, these aren't direct criticisms of him, because if you play him deep in a low block, he'll head everything. He will be strong. He will be bold. He'll be courageous. But when you're playing him and you're asking him to push up, you're going to have serious issues. And yesterday just didn't play into his hands. But I think he looked all right under Ancelotti, because let's be honest, after December last season, we played defensive in every single game under Carlo. So no wonder Michael Keane looked great, because he wasn't having to do anything. And when Michael Keane comes out of defence and he does carry that ball, because of his physicality, he looks quite good. He looks all right. He looks like he's capable of that. I just think Michael Keane is better in a defensive low block team, a team like Burnley, a team almost like Spurs at times, when they play three at the back and they use their wing backs to go forward. Michael Keane would be fine in that type of side, but in an Everton team that want to all progress and have that big push, he's not the man. And I think that's probably why he looked so good at times last season and a few years ago in that defensive shape. Also helped, he had Mina next to him a lot more last season.
Yeah.
And Mina is our best centre-half when he's fit, but he's never fit. I mean, it's been embarrassing this season.
Yeah, well, I was about to get onto that. I do agree with the Michael Keane, and I think for Harry Kane's goal, I think it specifically comes right onto Harry Kane's toes and gets caught. And then Harry Kane's not a player I'd say he's blistered with pace, but he looked like Mo Salah in pace wise compared to Michael Keane yesterday. It was really tough to watch. But you do mention Mina, and obviously there are a number of fans, myself included, the squad specifically need a good clear out. Obviously, we've asked for it behind the scenes. The strategic review went ahead. there are movements behind the scenes. Now it's time to focus on what's actually on the pitch. Obviously centre backs will be needed because I don't think Michael Keane or Holgate are going to ideally stay. You'd hope not. What do you do in terms of, obviously Ben Godfrey's sort of the future and Everton fans as well behind that being the case? What do you do with Yerry Mina? Do you keep him because he's got about a year left on his contract after this season, 18 months? Or do you look to try and get rid of him purely on his injury record?
Yeah, he goes. It's not because I don't like Yerry. I really like him. Like I've always rated him. I rated him much higher than Keane. I think he also has a mobility issue, though. By the way, I think he's also very. I think out of the centre halves we have, I actually think Holgate and Branthwaite probably the best mobily. Positioning is a massive issue with Holgate, and obviously Branthwaite's really inexperienced. But Mina he's such a commanding presence. He's a snide, but his injury record's appalling. And if he has only got 12 months left on his contract, which I think is the case in the summer, I think we've got to cash in because let's be horrible here. Let's put it as blunt as we can. And you might or might not agree with this, but what does this Everton team look like if we got relegated? Does Ben Godfrey stay at Everton? Does Michael Keane stay at Everton? Does Mason Holgate stay at Everton? Well, my issue would be, I think you'd probably get stuck with players like Michael Keane and Holgate rather than Ben Godfrey. I think you'd be stuck with John Joe Kenny and Coleman. I think you'd be stuck. But the better players, the Allan, the Decore, the Richarlison, the Calvert-Lewin, they'd all leave. They'd all leave. So what we would be left with is the deadwood out of this Everton team because nobody will want to pay their wages or nobody will want to buy them, which leaves Everton in the biggest, in my opinion, financial mess this football club has probably ever been in, because they'll be in the Championship with a load of players that have already proved they haven't got what it takes, they haven't got any heart, and they're Championship level, and we're stuck with them. So if we stay up, I also think we need a rebuild, and I think the lot of them, Holgate, Mina, Keane, I think they've all got to go. I think they've all got to go. And I don't actually care how much money we make for them. They just need to go and start again. Because while we are where we are, the proof is in the pudding. Everton are 17th in the league because we've got, in my opinion, the worst back four in the league, arguably. And our striker in Calvert-Lewin has been injured all season. So that's the reason why I believe we are where we are.
Yeah, and Calvert-Lewin is another player that came under a little bit of criticism. I personally am in the boat of not wanting to judge him just yet because, like you said, he's been struggling with an injury all season. He was rushed back as well at one point and then got re-injured. This is a similar injury that saw Shabam out for about 2 years as well. You got to be really delicate rushing players back. If he tears it, that's it. His career is not done, but it's very much hindered and slowed right down.
Yeah.
How big of a loss though has it been having that focal point? And as much as I like Richarlison, this out and out striker that I don't think he necessarily is.
See, it's really difficult because Everton, there was a thing that I read. Don't completely hold me to the amount of goals here, but Everton lost 38 goal contributions through James Rodriguez, Gylfi Sigurdsson, and Luca Dean. And a lot of those contributions, the assists, would have been for Calvert-Lewin. So fundamentally, he's lost his supply line. Richarlison, let's be honest, isn't known as being that tricky winger that can skin three players and deliver a ball. But he's also not your out-and-out number 9. So we don't really know what Richarlison's best position is. I love him. I absolutely adore him. But I actually don't know where his best position is because he's not a left winger and he's not a centre forward. Calvert-Lewin is a centre forward, but only if we're whipping balls into the box. And we haven't been. And when we've been in the position where we can, Rondon's been playing. And is nowhere near good enough. So again, he doesn't start for me. Calvert-Lewin doesn't start right now for me. If you was to ask me what my front three are for the Wolves game and Damari Gray's back, it would be Gordon, Gray and Richarlison through the middle. But it's only that way because I feel like Richarlison can run in behind. I feel like Calvert-Lewin hasn't and never will do that. He tends to hold the ball up. I feel like he's lost a yard of pace rather than gained a yard of pace. I don't think he's the best one-on-one finisher we've got. I think Richarlison probably is. So if I could mix the two of them, that would be fantastic. We'd have a world-class striker on our hands. But at the minute, I just think it's too much of a gamble playing Calvert-Lewin, and that's not me digging him out, not saying he hasn't got the heart. I just don't think he's fit enough.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Villa game was a clear sign of that. Like you said, he was just off the pace completely. I remember him being faster.
Last night, the amount of times that a ball would be played into him and his first touch was horrendous, or he was having to drop so deep just over the halfway line and play the ball out wide, and the ball would never get in the box to him. You know, Calvert-Lewin, his threat is aerial ability. He gets his head on things. He can battle in the box, but his ability isn't necessarily at his feet. And again, not a criticism, that just is what he appears to be. He's a very, very good header of a ball. It's very difficult for me to say, with the style of play that I think Lampard wants to play, I don't think he's going to score many goals, which means, as of right now, he's a waste of a position in our team. As much as I love him, and he scored 20 goals last season, got the time in the world for him, it's going to look like he's not bothered if he's not playing at the same pace as everyone else, which is running at defenders, trying to create that space, shooting from here, there and everywhere like Gray and Gordon do. If Calvert-Lewin is standing on the middle of the box, it's going to look like he's being lazy and people will criticise him, even though that's his game.
Well, I was going to say, I think you might have answered my question here after that. But there is still, you know, even while he's been injured half the season, big speculation on him. My question is to you, firstly, do you think he will go? And then secondly, would you sell him if the offer came in?
Yeah, I'd sell him. I'd sell him, and I think he will go as well. Yeah, I think he will go. I think he's got to put himself in a position where teams will want him because of the big injury that he had. So you sort of hope that he's going to kick on and he might have a good last 5 games and then Arsenal or someone comes sniffing for him. But honestly, the team I think he'll sign for will be someone like Newcastle. Because I don't see him right now getting into a top 6 team based on the fact of where he is in injuries wise. I think the summer knocked him when he didn't get any minutes for the England team. I just think, unfortunately, Calvert-Lewin was built up so high last season, and rightly so, that now his confidence is on the floor.
Yeah, I agree. I also, the Newcastle shout's not a bad one as well, because I don't think he suits Arsenal's style of play off what you were just saying then. They're not in a, you know, get the ball in the box for the aerial threats type of team. Arteta seems to want to play the classic Wenger way of old, so I think he'd struggle there. Obviously, we know his Arsenal fans will big him up and want it, but we know his strengths and weaknesses. We watch him week in, week out. And from what I see, I think he'd struggle there. Teams like Newcastle, Burnley, he'd absolutely, you know, suck it up there with all the crosses they put in the box. He'd love it, but
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think he will go as well, unfortunately. But I believe the fees being rumoured are like 50 million, 50 plus. Yeah, I mean, the injuries make me think we're probably going to have to sort of lower our expectations. Or you never know, we decide not to sell him. That if the club really want to, you know, dig their feet in, and then it's all on Calvert-Lewin, and if he wants to force that. But yeah, I think like you said, since the summer and last season, he's sort of the buzz has fizzled out on Calvert-Lewin, which, I don't know, depending on which way you look at it, could be good if we get Calvert-Lewin of old next season when he's fully fit. Could also be bad, though, if, like you said, he just doesn't fit the system, and then we've wasted the chance to cash in. But yeah, obviously, a big loss. Morale will probably be a little bit on the floor. What do you think Frank Lampard has to do now? Would you, I mean, his hands forced, but would you make any changes for the Wolves game?
I think defensively, if Godfrey's fit, he walks in over Keane. I think I personally would drop Coleman for Patterson. And I'd drop Calvert-Lewin for Demarai Gray. That would be my 3 changes. I don't think he will drop Coleman. I don't think that'll happen. But I think Demarai Gray and Gordon could very well happen. Demarai Gray, this is going to be a bit bold, but Demarai Gray, getting the ball to him is our best option of breaking the lines, of giving our attackers a little bit of extra space, because he has this a natural ability to beat people. Lookman used to have it. Other players that we've signed in the past have had that ability to draw a player in and beat him with quick feet, a little step over. Richarlison doesn't really do that. Gordon kind of does it, but he's still so young. He can be a bit naive at times. I think we definitely saw that against Boreham Wood, for example. So I think Demarai Gray is hugely important to our survival hopes. And I think we need, if we're in a game like against Wolves and it's 0-0, I don't see the point bringing on players like Iwobi and even Calvert-Lewin. And this is gonna sound ridiculous, and there'll be people who criticise me for this 100%. But I just kind of think Townsend might offer more in those situations. Like, he's got the ability to score from 35 yards. No one else in our team can hit a ball from 30 yards and stick it top in. And we've seen it twice from him this season. He also is prepared to work back. We know he's not great on the ball. We know he's not great at beating a man. We know all of those things, but he had a decent start to the season. And I'd rather see him than any Iwobi, than El Ghazi. So at 65, 70 minutes, I'd rather see him. But honestly, mate, it doesn't matter how we win. It doesn't matter what we do. The next 2 home games, we have to get 6 points, because I truly believe if we don't, we will go down. And that to me being heartbroken. Like, you know, I'm 29 years old. My dad and your dad has seen us win league titles, FA Cups, everything, European Cup Winners' Cups. Me and you have seen nothing. Like, this is as close to anything as we've sort of seen, whether it be up the league or down the league. We've seen 1 FA Cup final, and we pissed the bed in that. So I don't like this feeling. It give me 10th place every season for the next 10 years than 1 year having a relegation battle where I genuinely believe we can go down, because this is horrible. And I don't. Do you agree with that? Like, Con, do you agree with that? What do you think to that? Would like, usually the season's over for Everton at this point, but obviously we've got loads to play for. But are you happy or not happy? But are you invested? That's what I mean.
I mean, it's a weird season, and it has been all season. Invested, yes, and especially in terms of, obviously, I don't want us to go down, so I'm invested. I'll be invested till we stay up. I've got this horrible feeling it's got a Barry Orne-esque sort of feeling to it, where if we do, knowing us and it's Everton, it'll be something like, you know, like a Barry Orne-esque goal to save us. But I think I get what you mean in terms of, like, there is this season. It started with Rafa Benitez being in charge of the club and that 4-month stint. But there is a massive, and not just that, the communication stuff like that, fans are starting to become, pick up on the way the club is ran as well. Then you've got Farhad Mishiri, the Usmanov links, Kia Shubashan, and all that. There's a disconnect. In all honesty, I'm slightly disconnected. Not invested. I'm not. Saying I don't support supporters, but there is that sort of disconnect of like for a weekend. I used to make sure I changed all my plans to get the games in. Now, if I've got plans with mates and they go, "What about the Everton game?" I go, honestly, if I miss it, I'll catch the highlights on Sky, or sometimes I just won't. If depend on the result. Like last night, if I missed last night, so I'm not going to go watch 5 goals for Spurs in what looked like what would have been looking like a training session. There is that sort of. I think it's 4 years of mediocrity, and now this year of absolute abysmal. And I think myself and I think a couple of other fans now are just, we start to lose our rag a bit, hence the 27 years campaign and stuff like that. I think fans are going enough now.
I think as well, another really important thing is, and I've said this a few times, and I remember one of the times I actually said this in the summer of 2019 when we signed Iwobi. We went from being linked with Zaha, and we went from being linked with Decore and Zuma on loan to signing Iwobi. And I came out and criticised the Everton board, Marcel Brands, and I said that Marco Silva was let down. And I said that because we finished that 18 season fantastic. We were brilliant. I think we won 10 straight games or something. We were great. But I sort of felt like at that point we were on the decline that summer. I sort of felt like we were just going into oblivion, and the whole Allardyce thing. Then you sort of get your hopes up with Carlo Ancelotti, and we were so good for half of the season, and then we completely fell apart and finished 11th or 10th in the end, and it was just like, what a waste! Like what an actual waste. But where we are right now, I think has been coming for a long time, and I think it's been obvious to see, and that disconnect, the Mashiri element, board, I think they're all a disgrace. I think if somebody offered me, obviously I'm not rich enough to buy Everton, but if somebody walked into Everton Football Club and offered to take it off Mashiri, I'd beg Mashiri to sell it, because I don't trust him. I don't think he's got the right mentality to own a football club. I think his solution is bring people in and trust them with his money when it hasn't worked. I think appointments to directors of football haven't worked. I hope that the current one, Kevin Thirlwell, I hope it goes really well for him. But who knows? I like the fact he's not a high-profile name. So hopefully he'll come under the radar and just get on with the job. I like the fact that Lampard's hungry, and I sort of feel like we might be turning a corner. But equally, there is Everton fans out there that apparently are going on national radio and saying that he failed at Derby, he failed at Chelsea, and he's failing at Everton. So there's already Everton fans that are already turning on his back. And what I would call for, and I do this to your subscribers, and I do this to any subscriber of any Everton content channel and any podcast listener, now more than ever, we have to stick with this team. We don't like them necessarily. We think they're bottlers. We think they're a waste of space. We don't like the board. We have to back this team. And then in the summer, go hell for leather. Tell the board they're a disgrace. Tell the players, whatever. Do what you like. But Everton Football Club in the Championship, it wouldn't surprise me if they went into administration. Financially, the stadium, what happens to that? Everton Football Club in the Championship, it's over. It's destroyed. And I don't think we'd come back up. And I don't think the 52,000 seat stadium will go ahead. And I think we'd be finished. I really do. And I know that's negative, but we've got to stick together, because Goodison Park will keep us up. It absolutely will keep us up.
Yeah, I mean, home form, the away games, like you said earlier on, I'd be happy 11 men behind the ball, grind them out. I don't care. Just get the point, or if you're lucky, point. but at home, that I feel like our home games are going to be, every home game's going to feel like a 6-pointer. I think the crowd will. I hope and I think I've got a lot of trust in the crowd that go. My dad's a season ticket holder. He said, last couple of times it's been better. I think the atmosphere will get behind them because, it'll just it'll sink in that you've got to fully be loud and sort of spur them on, because otherwise we're on the brink of something that is unprecedented and quite scary, really.
Yeah, I mean, Everton have only ever been relegated once in their entire history. And when they got relegated, they came back up the season after and won the league, if I remember correctly. That will not happen this time. We may well do a Leeds and be stuck in the Championship for years, because we will be stuck with this deadwood. We will be stuck with a load of players that aren't even Championship level. There's no way Michael Keane and Mason Holgate get you promoted from the Championship. It's just no way.
Is the wage bill smaller as well? Like the league's wage bill is in what they, because there's a reason.
We'd be crippled.
Yeah,
we'd be crippled. Honestly, financial fair play in the Championship is worse than the Premier League. We would be, honestly, it'd be a fire sale. The amount of players that would leave, it would be scary.
As you said, there's a reason when like Bournemouth and that go down, and Norwich did it, why they loan some of the bigger players out, and people go, why are they loaning them out? I always think there's got to be a reason, and I think it's probably financial, because it's what most footballing decisions are.
Absolutely.
I think they sent Wendy out on loan a couple of times, Norwich, when they've gone down or something like that. If you buy a big player, go down.
The lad at Fulham, and Greaser went out on loan. He's come, he's been fantastic. I think, where has he gone?
Napoli, innit?
Italy. Napoli.
Yeah.
It's been absolutely sensational. He's a Fulham player.
Yeah, it looked like they might come straight back. They might come straight back up under Marco Silva as well. It's worth pointing out. But yeah. Well, I mean, I'll ask you for your prediction for the Wolves game, Mike. What do you think the score will be?
3-0 Everton.
I like that.
I mean, I just really think, I know what I'm like at a football game, and this isn't. I'm disrespecting myself here, but I love our football club as if I was a Scouser, as if I lived on the road. But to some people, I don't, and therefore I'm a Wool, and therefore I don't feel the same as a Scouser or whatever. But if I feel like that, imagine what your Evertonian who lives over the road feels like. Imagine the hurt that if I'm feeling it, how are those guys feeling it? How are the people that walk past the stadium every day feeling? Honestly, I was ready to lynch the Boreham Wood fans. Like, I was ready to have a go at them when they were taking the piss out of us, and you can hear me on ITV calling them scruffy because they're on about the shirts and that. You can hear me. So if I'm that passionate and I'm going to sing my heart out, I expect those players to put in a performance for me. And I having seen Brentford, having seen the Leeds games, we should be able to beat Wolves. So yeah, 3-0 Everton. What do you think?
I think it's going to be. No, I think it's going to be 1-0 to us. I think my mate's an Arsenal fan, and I didn't catch the game, but he watched the Arsenal Wolves game, and he said up until Arsenal got their goals, he said Wolves. He said it was one of the worst games to watch in terms of they just sat behind the ball, didn't want to give anything away. So just because they're that pragmatic and they're that defensively minded, I think we're going to be grinding it out. But I think Goodison behind, I think, that sort of atmosphere, we can definitely get a goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously 4 days later we play Newcastle. So it's kind of like whatever result we get in this Wolves game is going to have a knock-on effect in what we do against Newcastle. We have to win. We have to. I would come on any channel, anywhere, and say we're getting relegated and have it tattooed on my arse the year that we were relegated. Now, if we don't beat Wolves, because honestly, if we don't beat Wolves, I don't see us beating Newcastle. And if we can't beat Newcastle, I think we can't beat anyone at home. So we're going down. I think the only 3 points we'd get at home then is Brentford, which is going to be too little too late. So we have to win. We have to win.
Hopefully, mate. Hopefully. I think Brentford, it's all in our own hands as well. We're facing a couple of the teams down there with us. So the power's in our hands. But that is all we've got time for today. I just want to say thank you so much again, Mike, for coming on and speaking to me. It's been a pleasure as always.
No worries, mate. Thanks for having me as always. And good luck to all of you guys. And well done being the next big celebrity. Kind of really, smashed it, mate. Well done. BBC appearance, smashing it.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate it loads. And don't forget, guys, you can subscribe to the channel. Comment down below your thoughts on the Tottenham game. I'm sure plenty of you have plenty to say about it. Give it a like as well. And don't forget to check out Mike and the Blue Boys Network as well. Their links will be in the description as always. And most importantly, guys, stay safe.